And we are live once again with Transform Your Relationships Live. I'm Laura Rubinstein here with the fabulous and amazing Dr. Rhoberta Shaler. Hi, Rhoberta.
Hello, Laura. So exciting to finally be back because I've been on vacation, so we had a little blip. I'm so glad to be back, and we're going to talk about something really important. Like every one of us has a blow to our self-esteem, and sometimes, how do you respond to that?
Yeah, and sometimes we bring it on ourselves, and sometimes it surprises the heck out of us because somebody just came at us, and then all of a sudden we take on um, their intention to hurt us, basically, and tell us we're no good. Don't you think that a lot of us are raised in such a way that we have this inherent feeling that something's wrong with us?
Oh, yeah, the research shows that most of us don't think much of ourselves, actually. Because we hear the research also shows that we hear way more negative messages than positive messages. And so we're really good at picking up the negative ones, not so good at grabbing onto the positive ones. So yeah, we're always on a bit of a seesaw, teeter totter. Where's my self-esteem going? And we want to make sure that we know how to keep our self-esteem intact and know what should affect it, if anything. And when something does, to know how to say, is this mine or is it theirs? And I don't have to take this on, but you need to know how to think that through, right?
Yeah. So it's really we're starting with a disadvantage almost because we have this sense of something's wrong with us, and then when it actually we get confronted, like somebody else mirrors that back to us or says it to us or
Or we
something,
think they did.
or we think they did, or we feel rejected for something, our self-esteem just goes in the bucket.
Yeah.
Maybe it never was really out of the bucket, but we get reminded it's in the bucket.
Yeah. It immediately produces a feeling of deficit. Like something just got ripped away from me. Like, oh, how dare you take that away? And then we believe it, because of our preconditioning. Oh, what if they're right? Like we've talked so many times about people who are in hijackal relationships, and if you're in one for very long with a toxic, difficult person, and they keep telling you you're useless, nobody wants you. Why did they stay with you? You can't do anything right, and you begin to believe it, then that bucket starts to be empty. That self-esteem bucket just starts to be so depleted. And so then you take, well, nobody would be interested in me. And then you don't even believe it when someone reaches out and offers you help, because you can't believe that you have any value after somebody has taken repeated shots at you and taken away your thought that you do have value. And that's the whole thing with self-esteem. You have to know that you deserve to take up space and draw breath, and that you have worth because you're breathing. And that's not all that frequent that you really get to understand that, because everybody's in a little bit of a leveling war. You're like, can I get a little something from you? Can I feel a little better if I say something to you?
And if we're already starting at a deficit, it's like, really, how do you drive
Climb up.
yourself out of that? It's like, oh my gosh, everything I ever feared about myself is now true because of what just happened. Like
Yeah.
that's where we go. We go to this exaggerated place, and we got to talk ourselves off the wall and remind ourselves that this thing we think is true is not true, meaning this notion about ourselves that we are worthless and we are not valued or loved is absolutely not true.
And not valuable or lovable.
Right,
I mean, that's even deeper down in the
right.
deficit.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Is that, well, nobody would ever love me. I'm not lovable. And yeah, we're talking about extremes here, but we all have those moments. Somebody says something offhand to us, somebody um, that we don't know very well says something that, we kind of question ourselves, was that really as much of a put down as it just felt like? And what is that telling me about the other person? Or am I taking it on and deciding it's about me? Because that's one of the calibrations we really have to have. When I'm talking about the hijackal business, I talk about putting up your Teflon shield so that there's a shield between you and the other person, that their stuff hits it and you can observe it, but it doesn't get to you.
Mm.
So then you can say, oh, well, that's interesting, and lean in and say, well, that seems a little hijackal there.
Mhm.
And it didn't hit me because I know how to have the shield up. And it's not that I'm not taking in what's happening. It's I'm making a decision before I take it in.
You're prepared. You've got your protection armor on, and that's a form of self-love by taking the protection, doing the precautions, taking care of yourself. So there's something about talking ourselves off the ledge about how do we actually tap into building up our self-esteem so that we can, or tools to bring it back out, because when we're down, we feel like we have like half of our brain, or
Well,
our
you're
hearts are
absolutely
so
right.
crushed that our brain takes over and it makes this huge assumption that's so wrong. And then what? Then what do we do?
Yes, maybe somebody that you honestly believe had your back and loves you makes some snide comment on an off day, and somehow that gets under your radar, and you forget all the wonderful things, and you make it about you instead of, oh, they're having an off day. So you've got to get your balance back to be able to say, that's curious. Like I have a friend who, when she gets really nervous, and it doesn't take much, when she gets a little bit anxious, all of a sudden, all she talks about is herself.
Mm.
Like no matter what I might say about myself, she will immediately start talking about herself. She won't demonstrate any interest at all. Now, that could be, I feel like, what am I, chopped liver? Like, no. But what I know about that is that, oh, she's anxious about something. And we have to learn to calibrate those things to know they're not about us. So the number one thing is to be able to stop and say, about me or about them? What just happened? Am I being super sensitive and taking it in? And is that the appropriate? Because it might have been just going on in them.
And what I'm also getting about, and if they're in a stress situation, when people are stressed, they behave in ways that they probably don't even like either.
Mm-hmm.
And it's perfectly okay to take yourself out of that situation, because if you don't, they're not going to be of any use to you. They're not going to solve your problem if they're just hurting you. They don't
Yeah.
mean to, even if they don't mean to. But it's perfect to remove yourself from it if that takes care of yourself and you're not really there. If your self-esteem is going down, then you can't help them either. So it's best for both to
Yeah.
like make
Yeah.
a
No,
choice to take care of yourself, whatever that looks like.
right. No need to make anybody wrong. Just observe. Observe, but don't absorb. That's the
And
important
don't
thing in all
react.
cases. Yeah, just, oh, interesting. Curiosity. Let me think a second. What's going on? And
Hmm.
and that's very conscious. You want to do that. But if you're in a deficit, maybe you've been living in a deficit, maybe you had a hijackal mother, or maybe you got somebody who's always telling you the dark and downside potential of yourself and
So they're
everybody else.
complaining, right?
Yeah, and maybe you live with that person, or maybe it's your mother or
Maybe it's
somebody.
yourself.
Yeah. Then you have to observe that behavior and say, do I want this? Like, is this doing me any good? And maybe I need to make a shift. Maybe I need to get new friends. Maybe I need to know when to just observe and absolutely know and calibrate. It's not about me. Something's going on with them. Then you can actually be in a helpful, loving relationship. Until you can calibrate that, you don't want to be having battles and blows over self esteem and call that a relationship.
Right. I like
Somebody's,
to say become an observer to that. The whole thing you're saying is like you're observing, isn't that interesting? And then you're also observing yourself, like, I'm reacting to this. If we can just observe a little bit and then question it, like, what am I feeling? What am I needing? Like, I like to first get where I'm at. I'm feeling like horrible, unlovable, not valued, and some of it might be about them, but most of it's about what am I really feeling? And then what do I need to take care of myself, to get me to fill up my cup, to put back on my Teflon, to whatever. But it's really, 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 really important to get to a place of peace, of calm, of serenity, of feeling okay in your body.
Yeah.
And the transition from having that blow to getting back out is a journey that I think it's an opportunity. So if we
Mhm.
take it as like a positive, like, okay, well, somebody just hurt me and I'm having this terrible reaction to it, or I just hurt me and I'm having this, I'm just not feeling really good. It's a huge opportunity to build that muscle of self-care, and building self-esteem. So where can people start?
Well, last night, every Monday night at 6 p.m. Pacific time, I do a live stream called Help for Toxic Relationships. And last night we talked about rebuilding self-esteem after emotional abuse. And there are 8 steps there. So you can go find that at YouTube on my channel. My channel's name is FOR Relationship Help. And the first step is what I said earlier. Know that you deserve to take up space and draw breath, that you are not invisible, you are not not valuable, you are not unlovable. And so you have to believe that. I remember, 1984. So I used to have these big meetings in my house, and people would sit around in a circle, and each one of them had a mirror, and they would do this exercise. And there would be about 24 people sitting in a circle in my living room. And they'd look in the mirror and they'd say, I love you, I accept you, and I approve of you just the way you are. Mwah! Right? We talked about that on another episode. And oh, they would be, not wanting to look at the mirror, and they'd laugh and they'd get quiet and they'd do all kinds of things. And I remember, and that's a good technique to do, be able to hold your own eyes and tell yourself that way. And when you can do it and you can feel it, you're on your way to improving your self esteem. So I love you, I accept you, and I approve of you just the way you are. Mwah! And you got to do the kiss. You absolutely have to. But I remember one night, it had been weeks and weeks, and this fellow, he was about 78, and he came in for the meeting, and he was just like that little bird on Charlie Brown, Woodstock, just, and his, I did it, I did it, I did it, I did it, I didn't look away, I did it. And no matter how long you've been on this earth, to have that moment of being able to validate yourself, I love you, I accept you, and I approve of you just the way you are. Mwah! That's huge. And even if it sounds funny, do it anyway. Start
Try
there.
it. Yeah, it's worth a try. And then try again, and then try again.
Daily, at least once, preferably,
One a day, right?
preferably more. Yeah, because it takes some doing. You've had lots of messages from the world and other humans who want to tell you, the research shows that the average child up to the age of 6, I think they said, hears 457 negative messages a day. Don't do this, don't go there, don't touch that. So if we're in that mindset and we're raised in that mindset just by people maybe even trying to keep us safe, we don't, well, we're not doing a great job of parenting, but we're just in a pattern, and we can interrupt that pattern and choose a new one. So if no matter who has told you in bad moments or in a lifetime, don't believe them. Check in with yourself. If there's something that you don't like about yourself, change it. But if it's just all about them, and they had a need to be superior to you or to control you or whatever, notice that and say, okay, I'm not going to give that any weight anymore. And that will be a really good way. And another thing to do, Laura, is to forgive yourself if you have it when you beat yourself up. As soon as you realize you're beating yourself up, say, oh no, I play on my own team. No, I'm my own cheerleader. I'm not going down that. I'm not saying go into denial. I want to make a really clear distinction about that. It's not like, oh, well, no, be self reflective, figure it out, but don't go down the rabbit hole, and don't beat
Yes.
yourself up.
So you're speaking my language because when I work with somebody in hypnosis, I'm always checking in with them, helping them check in with themselves. Like, is this the truth? What you're thinking in your brain, really out there in the world, if somebody else was looking in, really the truth? Is there some illusion you bought into? And you mentioned the keyword pattern. We have a pattern of thinking, a pattern of responding, and if we can break that pattern, and that's what I love about your mirror exercises, it's breaking up the pattern because in our brains, habits are formed. They know through neuroscience, through repetition. And you have this neural pathway that's used to this
Right.
thinking process, right? And in hypnosis, what we do is we create new neural pathways. And how are new neural pathways created? By repetition. And what is hypnosis? Hypnosis is all self-hypnosis. It's what you keep saying to yourself over and over again. So I love that you encourage us to do this more than once. And I encourage another way and to do it in more than one way. So um, another thing that I found really powerful is to write 5 things down that you can praise yourself for. And it might be, I praise myself for getting up today. I praise myself for taking a deeper breath in this moment than I did in the last moment. Or
Baby
I,
steps.
I acknowledge myself for taking a drink of water because that is good for my body. You know, so what can you acknowledge yourself for doing that is something good? And the other thing you mentioned is be on your own team. I like to say another way to play with that concept is to say, how would you treat your best friend in this situation? What would you say to them?
Yeah.
Say it to yourself.
Right.
Be your own best friend. And, you know, the other thing, other times I'll also talk about babies learning to walk. Okay, so this is creating a new neural pathway or creating a new habit or creating building up one's self-esteem if you've been so busy not, avoiding that
Uh-huh.
or cutting yourself down, which, is huge epidemic. In my opinion, a lot of us do that. So the other thing you can do is think about a baby who's learning to walk. And what do we do when we see a baby who's learning to walk? We encourage them and we are like, oh, you can do this. And oh my gosh, you're going to grab that coffee table now. Oh my gosh. And then they plop back down, right? And I think, right back on their squishy diaper. And what do you say to that baby who couldn't get up and walk? Do you say, stupid baby, why can't you walk? Absolutely not. You're like so excited. They tried, right? So you're this baby trying. And if you think about it, it may not feel good. I mean, it didn't feel good for them not to achieve, but they don't have this mindset as a baby that I'm not good enough. They're going to get there. You'll get there. So if
Yeah,
you do,
you really don't say to the baby, okay, that's it. You can walk on, you can be on all fours forever, right? That's all you
they
got.
don't give up, right? They don't give up either,
Yeah,
right?
that's all you got. That's it for you, right? I think it's a great metaphor. I use it too. And uh, another thing that happens to me in my world is I say to myself, when I'm figuring something out for me, I say, what would I say to a client? Right?
What would Roberta say?
That's right. Like, what would my advice be to a client in this situation? That kind of wakes me up and says, okay, don't go down any rabbit holes. And, people who are insecure tend to do things to try and make themselves feel a little better. And sometimes what that is make a little crack to kind of pull you down to what they're feeling about themselves. And sometimes it's just wise to just go, and leave that shield intact. Don't even address it. Just let it go by because and not if it's regular pattern, but if that happens occasionally, just having a bad day. Okay. And keep yourself centered. You will have to be the one who keeps you centered. Nobody else can do that for you. If you are that baby, nobody else can make you get up and try to walk again. Only the baby can say, I want to go over there, or I want to be a walker. They have to want to, and we have to want to love ourselves more, to have a more balanced, healthy, happy life. And the way to do that is to be on an even keel with everybody else. Like, we're all in this together and there's lots of ups and downs and they're all over the place, but let's not have them be extremes.
Yeah.
One day you feel a little better than another day. Somebody says something, you wonder about it a little bit, but don't let it take you down. They're the author of that. What you do with it is what you're the author of.
Yeah, and if you, like you said, need to find some new friends that will help make this journey a little easier, because what do? They cheer you on. That would be perfectly honorable, acceptable, and very self-loving to find people who actually praise you as well and give you the opportunity to praise them. Because the more practice we have in praising ourselves, acknowledging ourselves positively, the more that neural pathway gets in place. And my husband says a quote that he didn't come up with, but I don't know where he got it from, so I'll just acknowledge him for it, is you can't insult a happy person. So if
Uh-huh.
you build up your happiness factor and somebody throws something at you, it kind of can bounce off a lot easier because you know it's not the truth.
Hmm.
You know it's more about them than you, and you can do exactly what you're saying. Huh, that's just the bizarrest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, or having a bad day. Eh?
You're
And you
having a bad day, aren't you now? I'm sorry about
and
that.
only say that in your head. Don't say
Right.
it out loud, you know, but no, that you don't, yeah, everything that comes your way doesn't have to stick. I mean, that's the important thing. Have a look at it. You know, they throw you the ball, you look at it and say, "Oh, not mine." Right?
Ah, well,
You
here you
know,
go. Oh, volleyball.
but
Click.
if you find yourself collecting those balls and saying, "Oh, look at all the things people have said to me and awful," then you need to get into a therapeutic relationship with somebody who can help you because this is weighing you down.
Yeah.
And that may be just what you need to say, "I've got too many of these negative balls that I'm keeping and I need rid of them. So let me go to somebody who takes those away and helps me give them away or destroy them or blow them up or whatever they need doing to them." And you know that's what a well experienced person can help you with. They can stand out there and be the person who's not in the soup and when you're in the
They'll
soup.
throw you the positive balls. They'll catch back the negative balls. They'll show you how to dribble them away, right?
Yeah,
It's
and know
play
which
ball.
ones are yours and which are not, which
Yeah.
have value and which do not, and which ones are worth considering, which ones are definitely ones that need to be dropped. You know, self awareness is the journey. And the more that you become self aware, the more that you become aware of what you want, who you are, what your values are, what your vision for your life is, what your beliefs are. Then, when you go to find those new people, then you'll find ones that are like minded to you. Not that they're always going to be agreeing with you, but that you can count on them. You begin to respect them and value their opinions. You're not somebody's um, doll to stick pins in. You know, I had an abusive mother and a hijackal mother, so I was just handy. You know, if she wasn't feeling good in the moment, I was handy, like stick a pin in that one. And you have to get rid of that stuff, you know, and then you have to move away from those people. You know, it's not a terrible thing to say, okay, my mother has issues and I am not going to have fleas as of her issues.
Right.
So I am going to separate myself. You know, I used to say I love my mom because she's my mom, but I don't like her much. And I don't hang out with people I don't like much. So that was a pretty clear indication to myself that, oh, I'm not safe around that one. Move away. Don't go there. Go there only when you feel really strong. So if you do have a hijackal or a difficult or a nasty or a passive aggressive parent, only go there when your Teflon shield is in good shape.
In really good shape, and do what you need to do to build it up. Like you said, get some help, because you have these patterns built into you that will naturally attract it and naturally have these responses that are not really natural. They're just automatic. They are, and you can create new ones, but you have to have some distance and some practice. And the practice can come from, like you said, getting some new friends, putting in some practices of the blowing kisses at yourself, saying positive things to yourself. And this, you have to be like rigorous about this stuff if you really want to change and really dedicated to it. But there is such freedom when you have the ability to take care of yourself and that you don't feel You don't second guess yourself. For example, can I give a quick story?
Yeah, sure.
Just as a fun thing, it doesn't even phase me anymore. It's become, because I practice a lot and I continue to practice. Every opportunity you get to practice the self-esteem stuff, do it. So I was on the sky ride at the zoo with a friend. Okay, it's a fun thing. No big deal. And all of a sudden I got this urge that, there's this perfect weather, it's very slight wind. I just wanted to enjoy it. And I adore the friend I'm with, and we're gabbing away. And I turned to her and I said, because I knew time was of the essence, we only had like 2 more minutes before the ride is over. I said, I have a request. And I said it just as excited as that. And she goes, what? And I said, let's be quiet and just enjoy this ride for she's like, okay. And I didn't want to say any more because I just wanted to enjoy it. And it was long. It was long. It was like 3 minutes. It wasn't 2 minutes. And that's long to be quiet. And it was delicious. And I felt like a bird flying. And I just looked around and I took it in like I've been on this sky ride many times. I took it in like I've never been on it before. And it's just an example that when you feel like you say, Roberta, you deserve to take up space on this planet, in this world, in this body, that there's a freedom to enjoy it.
Absolutely. And on that note, recently I've been working with some people in the LGBTQ community, and when you are set aside as different, right, not mainstream, whether that's your sexual preference, your identity, your gender identity, or it is that you don't belong to the social group or the ethnic group, you don't feel that way. I was working with an acupuncturist the other day, and she said, I said, "Oh, where are you from?" She said, "I'm from China, but I don't identify as Chinese." And when you step outside of whatever group somebody's told you you're supposed to be in, your self-esteem really needs to be something that you solidify, right? And don't be afraid of those people. Rise up within yourself and know yourself well and know how you feel and learn how to express it, and don't let people pick at you. When they try, you say, "Oh, no," and then you affirm something. I talk about the personal weather report all the time, but when somebody says something that is inaccurate or whatever about you, don't make them wrong. Say, "Oh, that's not the way I feel," or would you like to know how I feel about that? If somebody tries to gaslight you, that's an important thing to say. But share your reality with other humans by making a personal weather report statement. Nothing about them, just talk about yourself. And then people can take away that fear of not knowing you, or fear of a difference you might have, or maybe you're a political opposite. And you're not going to learn anything if everybody keeps talking and nobody listens. I mean, it just about drives me nuts to watch The View. Everybody's talking and nobody's listening. I mean, we don't have to have conversations like that. But when you have a fear that you're not good enough, when you have a fear that you're not worthy or that you don't deserve to take up space, and then someone suggests that you're right, you need some help. You really do. You've got to have someone on your side who is not in the soup and can say, "Is it possible that you don't have to own that? Is it possible that that's not about you? Is it possible you could turn that and have it be strengthening to yourself instead of diminishing, which is perhaps the way it was intended when it was thrown at you?" And that's the joy. That's the joy of the journey of life, right? And if we're fearful of that, we just won't get the richness from that journey.
I will also say there's the times when we did bring it on ourselves. We did something that we're not proud of, that we aren't good enough at. And that we need support through that too, but we have to own it as well. Like, okay, I made a mistake.
Yeah.
Okay. And I want to feel better, and I want to get better, and I want to be better, and I want to do better. And here's what I'm going to do, and create a
That's
plan.
the personal weather report. That's a great example, Laura. If you do something, paint it red and say, "Yeah, I did that. It was a mistake. I obviously was thinking poorly about it. I'm going to rephrase it and all. And then let it be put to bed. Don't let somebody use it as a hammer and say, oh, well, you know how you are. No, I owned it. I took responsibility for it. I haven't repeated it. Please notice.
That's right. Yeah, and own it. And if so we can be the causer of it and take ownership of it, or we could be at the effect and not take ownership of it and take care of ourselves. So there's got to be a lot of discernment in our experience of this whole thing, is like, what part did I actually play in this and what part is really not mine at all. So I really think we have to take a look at it from a holistic. It's not always that we're the victim here and we need to lick our wounds, and not be victims, right? We may be the causer, and then we have to take ownership and then improve and get better. And there's a dance. We'll be in different places at different times. And I just hope this conversation has opened up some things for people with some ideas on how to do both sides of this.
Absolutely. And, if it's helpful to you, because of my two podcasts, I found it difficult to constantly be saying for relationship help, FOR relationship HELP. So you can now get to the website by going to transformingrelationship.com.
Nice.
It's quite simple. Um, and you'll find all kinds of things there in the podcasts or the YouTube channel, which is still called For Relationship Help. Because sometimes when you have that feeling, you don't have to deal with it with the person. You need to deal with it within yourself. And sometimes going to a video or a podcast on that very topic um, can really be helpful, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Hearing other people's positive, inspiring new ways of thinking, creating those neural pathways is important. If you want some support in nurturing yourself, the feminine power cards are very useful and nurturing. These are self-nurturing cards, femininepowercards.com and transformtoday.com if you want to be in touch. Oh, this has been so rich, Roberta. Again, we did it. So high five to you. Way to go. We kiss to each other, kiss to ourselves, and
Ah,
kisses to everyone. May you experience and bring yourself into the highest esteem for yourself and others.
and I love you. I accept you and I approve of you just the way
Where
you
you
are.
are. Mwah.
Mwah. Bye
Yay.
bye.